Hi, everybody. It's Chris Grimm, and this is Deep Work Fast, where every week on Tuesday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, I come on here on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I bring you tools for 20 minutes or less, if I'm paying attention to the time. Tools, concepts, and ideas so that you can be at your best at work and at home in all the roles that you're in. And I call this Deep Work Fast because in our blog that we drop on Mondays, but also here on Deep Work Fast, it's my goal to give you, um, you know, tools and ideas in a simplified format. They might not be simple, by the way. They might be super complex items like we're going to talk about today. Um, but what I try to do is break it down so anybody who's interested can understand what it is, why you should care, how to do work on the thing. If in fact it resonates with you that, oh, you say, I could be better at that, or I know this is a problem for me. And on some of the more complex issues that we all deal with every day, right? Like chronic conflict with people or poor decision making, those are things that you might be living with in your work and at home over and over and over again. And maybe you've resolved that that's a part of your personality, or it's never going to get better, or maybe you're blaming it on the other people. I've heard it all. I've been coaching people for almost 29 years. And yeah, well, there's a bug today with us on Deep Work Fast. I didn't order that. Okay, so we are going to talk today about a concept that I started last week. It's called shadow work, your shadow self. And what I want to get you to is getting past understanding what it is and into actually doing what we call shadow integration, which requires that you accept that you have a shadow. Each one of us have parts of us that we would like to ignore and maybe hide from everybody around us. That's what creates the shadow, by the way, right? It's the stuff that we don't want to admit. And oftentimes it's because it creates, us not at our best. Maybe it's trickles out and is a part of what most people think are our weaknesses or things that they wish we would do differently or better. Sometimes it is something like an anger issue, and so it you hold it in, and then you get so mad, or you're under so much stress at the same time you can't hold it in anymore, and it is explosive, right? It becomes a problem. So first, again, and if you did not read the blog this week or last week or this week, Heather's putting those in the chat so that you have access to them. They're short reads. But really, if you're having a hard time or you're still just digesting this, I would highly recommend you get it. They're short reads, and I try to make it really clear what we're talking about and why. And the why is the important part, because for you to be at your best, it takes, some courageousness to not only be aware, but to want to change the things that you are doing that are ineffective. And I say that, and I just want everybody to know, I realize, because I'm in the people business and I am a person, that we can say we're going to get better. We can say we're sorry. We can see the downstream effects of our ineffectiveness, but it isn't always easy to change. And it's really difficult for people to change if, in fact, those ineffective behaviors are deeply rooted, like we've had them our whole life, and maybe trying to deal with them, looking at them closely, like under a flashlight, for instance, feels uncomfortable. And when that triggers us and makes us upset, sometimes we don't want to do that. And we don't want to hear the feedback. We don't want to deal with it. And so, because we're probably successful and we have strengths, we would rather look at those. And, there are some healthy ways to balance that. And today, I thought I would give you a second dose of understanding how we embrace and integrate our shadow instead of trying to repress it, ignore it, pretend like it doesn't exist. Because what can happen in the workplace in particular is that when we have really ineffective behaviors and we try to ignore it, Unfortunately, other people think that it's a blind spot, and it may or may not be a blind spot. You may actually know and are choosing not to address it, or maybe you just don't actually understand the impact on other people. So, Heather Mission Control, can you put my questions in there that I came up with? So, I thought today what I would give you, and you can do it right now. You could grab a sheet of paper and a pen or pencil if you're sitting still, not driving. And I want you to reflect on some questions here. And like I said, if you have a pen and paper, go ahead and write it down, because most likely you'll start it today with me, and then later maybe you'll come back to it, or it'll just roll around in here a little bit. Maybe even tonight when you lay down to go to sleep, you'll be like, So, one is I want you to reflect on maybe the times, or maybe one time that you can remember where you didn't feel like you were completely yourself. Because one of the things that happens when that other part of us takes over is that, because we don't want to be that, it's not a part of our brand that we want, we can disassociate from it. And so think about first maybe some times where you, after a situation happened, you went, why did I do that? Right? Remembering the situation created for you maybe a little bit of shame, regret, right? I wish I didn't do that. And I just want you to mark that down. Like, think about maybe some examples of times. So you weren't super happy with the way it went, you weren't proud of it, and you walked away going, why did I even do that? Right? So think about that. It happens, right? Sometimes that can happen when we are in a situation and we're rushed. Maybe we're under a ton of stress. Maybe we were prepared. Maybe we were over prepared. Maybe we were unprepared. And something triggers us, our own insecurity, or maybe something somebody says, and a version of you shows up, and you're not super excited about it, but you go through with the meeting, or you go through with the interaction with the person, and then later you regret it, right? And so I want you to note that, right? Because that kind of awareness is important. I don't want you to beat yourself up over it. I just want you to know that that is an example of knowing that you've got the self that you think is the best version of you, or a good version of you, or an effective version of you, and you're showing up. And then there's another part of us that shows up sometimes. And that other part, right, is, like I said, maybe some things that we don't like about ourselves, or we don't want to think we're ineffective or the opposite of the good one. And some of that could be shadow. Some of it could just be a circumstance, but most of the time it's a part of us, right? And then I also want you, thank you, Heather, for putting in the chat about 1,000 entries, everybody. Heather's being efficient and giving you one by one. So I'm going to try to address them, or all of them. I want you to think about what you believe about yourself and what you think are the characteristics of you when you're at your best. So first, make that list. Maybe you would say, when I'm on time, or I'm organized and I'm prepared and I'm gracious to people when they make mistakes. Go ahead. All the things you think are the best version of you, make that list. And then, most likely, while you're thinking of that list of the best version of you, probably there's a part of you that wants to think about the opposite of that. And so sometimes, if I was sitting with you in your office right now, I might have you make 2 columns on the paper, which is the things I want to be, things I want people to say about me, the positives. And then I want you to have the other list, things I don't want people to know about me, things I don't want people to say about me, characteristics I don't want associated with me, right? Just awareness, put them down. I'm not asking you to share out loud today. And again, this is just us embracing the fact that they exist, right? We have stuff. And then maybe alongside that, start to note which of those characteristics you don't tolerate well in other people, right? So if you put on your list, I'll use mine, by the way. I'll just say, you know what I want people to think about me? I want them to believe I'm competent and that I listen well and that I intend on helping them. I think that's the best version of me. And then there's a version of me that I don't love, right? Sometimes I can get fussy and be too direct with people. Sometimes I bring truth in a way that doesn't feel good to people. I don't like that, but I do it. It's not always effective either, by the way. And I don't love it when other people do it to me. So there's the example, right? We've got the good identity parts of us. We got the parts of us we don't really want to accept. We want to pretend sometimes that they don't show up. And like I said, I promise you that if it's something about yourself that you don't really love, um, and it also really triggers you in other people, there's something in you that's reflecting, and it can be a part of our shadow, right? It can be something in you. In fact, by the way, it wouldn't bother you if it wasn't a part of something in you. So let me just show you and talk to you about some client stuff. And what Heather put in, thank you, Heather, in the chat is some examples of behavior patterns that are really common in the workplace. We can also apply some of them to home, but today I just want you to stay in the workplace and think about all day, every day, not with your family members, but with people you work with, because sometimes that feels a little safer to think about um, in a setting like this. And so I want you to think about those behaviors, and they're behaviors that most people would identify as not highly effective, but yet they're commonplace. We see them all the time with people. And in coaching, I hear about these all the time, and lots of managers and leaders complain about it, about their people a lot. And sometimes their people complain about them a lot. Procrastination is a really great example. So, procrastination can be born of someone trying to be at their best. Procrastination can be a perfectionist not wanting to get the PowerPoint or the report done, etc., until it's perfect. And so the other people in the situation might be experiencing the shadow of it, right? So the shadow sometimes of perfection is procrastination. Sometimes procrastination has another root cause. And what I find is oftentimes the person who's procrastinating has a ton of justification and rationale for doing that. Sometimes it's really good. So that's an example of something that is really commonplace and can be rooted in good intention. And yet most of us don't want to tolerate it in each other. And sometimes we do it ourselves. Another one I want to talk about that is very, very common is people who, I've met a lot of you and I've done it myself, who are the high performer on a team that's not great, or a highly functioning, get everything done, over functioning, awesome human in a team or in a whole company or in an organization where no one else is functioning at the same level. Now, I want you to think about that. So, that person is showing up, and their good version of themselves in the story is, I'm going to do everything, I'm going to be the best that I can be, etc. And then sometimes, if I get to coach that person, I'll say, let's explore the shadow side of this because you're frustrated all the time. You're angry, and sometimes you predict that the other people are not going to deliver. They're not going to show up, that you're going to have to rescue them. And so the good part about this, I have someone, hi, Jessica. So yeah, make it stop. I would love to do that too. A lot of people do it. Thanks for the comment, right? Overfunctioning is that thing that has a good side and it has the shadow side. So I want everybody to understand that, because oftentimes we're rolling along, we're getting stuff done, and we are expecting other people to do the same. And after a certain amount of time, we become resentful, we get upset, but we stay in the situation. Why? Well, because part of us wants to be needed. Part of us likes to be the hero or the martyr of the story. So these are examples that I'm giving all of you to think about. It might feel bad to think about it, and I want you to know that that would be normal. And that's really great news in the short term, because when I'm coaching people and we get to the point where a full reflection of yourself, the good part and the not so good part, can absolutely, yes, Jessica, trigger someone's insecurity. And when that does, it sometimes stops us in our tracks and we don't do the work. And so, deep work fast. The work here, I'm saying, is stay in it. Learn about yourself. Learn about what you're doing that's great, and learn about the shadow parts of you that you don't like to admit, but they might be keeping you in situations that are holding you back. And I've seen it lots of times. I'm coaching people and they start to realize that by not taking care of the needs of our own goals, our own self, getting to know our authentic self, and like getting our needs met, for instance. And if I use that example, what I mean is a healthy way to integrate your shadow and get your needs met would be having a conversation and new agreements with your team members so that you don't have to carry the load all the time. We get rid of the hero complex. We get rid of that martyrdom that's exhausting us and making us mad. And instead, we say, I want to be on a healthy team. I don't want to be the savior of the team anymore. I don't need to have my shadow running even the good part of me. I want everybody to show up. And if in this place that can't happen, maybe this isn't the place for me anymore. And this is why, by the way, shadow work and integration can sometimes scare people. Because when we look deeply at ourselves and our motivators and all the things that are keeping us in our decision-making patterns, sometimes we have to face that the situations that we're in are a part of that. Now, the situation is just a reflection of what you're choosing, by the way, which is why it's important to actually do some work. And in my blog, I say it a few times, and I'm going to say it out loud now. It is really, really a good idea, really, to get professional help. And oftentimes, if you dig into this enough, you are going to need a therapist or someone who understands family systems and create a safe, objective space for you to unpack all the reasons why you're functioning this way, the good part, the not so good parts, and in between. And most of the time, I have to admit to you, because my career has been in executive coaching in the workplace, my job, or the people who work for me, when we're coaching in a work context, we don't really have the tools, nor do we have the time to dig super deep in a lifetime of stuff that's now has you trapped in a pattern. Now, we can deal with the current reality. We can help you with behavior change, and we can bring you these tools like I'm doing so that you can see where you are in your own development, personally and professionally. But again, why am I here? I want you to be the best in every role that you have, right? Boss, coworker, team member, cross-functional team member, but also parent, partner, sister, daughter, all the things. Whoever you are and whatever roles you play, I want you to be great at all of them. And that doesn't mean happy all the time. It doesn't mean we're perfect, by the way. In fact, it just means having awareness and having a choice, consciously deciding who we're showing up as. And when it's ineffective or when it's making us super unhappy, we should know what is happening and how to change it. So I hope you grab the blog from this week and from last week. I hope you get to know this concept of shadow I last week I actually put in some books listed in there that I think are fantastic. If nothing, get the summary or go online and watch some of the videos from some of these authors so that you can become informed and you can be writing your own story, not living in service to old behavior patterns and stuff that you've probably outgrown. So go, 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 go. I hit my 20 minutes. So I'll see you next week and have a great day.